mistakes that we often see with personalization. So the most common one by far is just standard content, which is to say you have your content. It's just, it goes out to anybody who is a lead or more. And in that sense, like that, it's better to be sending out at least some kind of content than nothing. But usually, you want to be sending out content that is, more tailored to the experience rather than just like one blast that goes to everyone. In a similar vein, an issue that we often see is misaligned content. So this is like if you're sending out, case study information to people who are informational, like they're not ready to learn about like the value of you versus your competitors. Like they're still trying to figure out if they even have a problem or what their problem actually looks like. Similarly, you don't want to send like a here's how we do like how we solve this problem blog to somebody who's already been on your pricing page a bunch and is visiting you because they already know that stuff. They're interested in, is this going to be a cost-effective solution for me? So aligning your content properly is an important thing to consider as well. Another really common mistake is sending CPC traffic just to the homepage or to a generic landing page that's not specifically tied to the user experience. So ideally, you'd like to structure it from the top by saying, this is where this person's at in the buyer journey. This is the ad that speaks to that experience. And then that ad goes to a landing page with consistent messaging that continues to tell the story that that person needs to hear given where they are in the buyer journey experience. So you wouldn't really want to do, purely content-based marketing towards, somebody who's at the very bottom of the funnel, the same way you wouldn't want to send case studies to someone at the very top of the funnel. So as I sort of like moving on my bullet points, you can see that, bottom of funnel content doesn't appeal to buying intent. So you want to make sure, that if you're sending content to somebody who's at the bottom of the funnel, that it has to do with, what it means to be a customer and to purchase. Often you'll see that content has been reused for a long time, and so you get outdated content that's no longer really relevant to your current product even, or the person's experience. And then lastly but not leastly, just exhausted content. So if you've been running the same ads for a really long time, chances are like a lot of the people have already seen it. They kind of get that part of it. It's not fresh and it's not new. And your prospects may be tired of seeing it. So here's a collection of kind of personalization mistakes that we can fix sort of in the next few slides. So the first one is really about aligning personalized content. So if you've well selected your mediums and campaigns to the buyer journey phases, it actually isn't so difficult to figure out which things make the most sense. So for awareness marketing, you might say something like, have you noticed this problem? And you'd be using something like, for example, targeted display that sends people to a really high quality informational page, but that's not gated. Information is a little higher threshold, so we might say, hey, we're going to learn about this problem now. And so this might be targeted display that goes, or really targeted search or something, really targeted display going to a gated info page, which is to say, hey, here's higher quality or higher value information that we're going to need to get your information to give you access to. And then someone will drive into this, like, let's learn about the problem messaging. Consideration phase, you might say something like, here's why this problem is worth fixing. And in that sense, you might use targeted search surrounding key problem areas and taking them to a solutions page that they can interact with. Sometimes, I've even seen great ones from some former clients or current clients that have like ROI calculators and things like that. That's a great place to send someone in the consideration phase. Say, here is the ROI you can expect to get from us. And then lastly, in the buying areas, like this is why you should buy from us. And that often means like a remarketing ad that's taking people to a pricing page, comparison page, or promoting a case study. So that's kind of how we think about aligning each piece of content to each stage in the funnel, which I think is just a really important concept to help sort of drive traffic to the right areas for the right experiences. And then last but not least, one way to really improve paid ad performance is to personalize the landing pages. So using something like a landing page builder like Instapage or Unbounce to quickly develop like really relevant, high quality landing pages can be great. Making sure that your ads are connected with those really relevant landing pages and sort of providing a consistent experience from ad copy to page copy. You could even go further, and this is a kind of expensive thing you can do, but you can basically be using a personalization and optimization tool like Optimizely or Demandbase has one to basically provide increasingly granular personalization to the pages. And those are sort of tied in general to the idea of doing CRO. You don't necessarily need a really fancy solution like Optimizely or Demandbase to do CRO testing, but the idea is, have sort of a plan for optimizing the page experience and perform CRO, on those pages, or use just something like Instapage to build pages quickly that you can then create an experience that's consistent for someone in the paid experience. So they can go from, hey, I'm clicking on an informational ad and now I'm learning about stuff, or I'm clicking on a consideration ad and now I'm like really able to view the value of this solution. So making sure that the landing pages have as much targeting and personalization as possible, I think, is going to be really helpful to the solution in general. And lastly, but not leastly, just refreshing your content. So even if you haven't been running your ads so long that there's a clear, statistically significant winner to an A/B test, let's say, refresh your ads anyway. Ad lists get exhausted the same way that email lists get exhausted. So if you are, sending a bunch of emails, you'll notice that people just get a little tired of getting emails after, a long enough time. And same thing with an ad. If the ad is the same content that it's always been, people will just get less and less interested in clicking on it. The other thing about rotating ads regularly is that every once in a while you'll stumble across something that's really valuable, like some phrasing or some image or some idea that just really strikes gold. And the longer you hang on a certain ad, the less likely you are to have it turn into magic or turn into gold. And so refreshing and giving yourself that opportunity, kind of a roll of the dice, is actually pretty valuable. And last but not least, just keeps your brand new. It gives people a new way of thinking about it, a new possibility for resonance. And so refreshing your content is, I think, a valuable strategy to make sure that people don't get bored with you.